The bomb dropped on Hiroshima was equivalent to 14 kilotons of TNT. The amount of radiation released by this blast is just a fraction when compared to another nuclear incident in history, which was 400 times more powerful and destructive than Hiroshima. Today, a massive dome stands as a visible reminder of this event, measuring 354 feet in height and 840 feet in width. This structure conceals the aftermath of the worst nuclear disaster in history, causing the biggest enemy of America, the Soviet Union, to panic. This incident is famously known as the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, where a small mistake resulted in a nuclear blast greater than Hiroshima. The Chernobyl nuclear plant was built 100 kilometers away from the capital city of Ukraine in the city of Pripyat, which is now entirely barren due to nuclear radiation. At that time, Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, and it was the Cold War era when the Soviet Union was constructing nuclear-powered energy plants. One of these plants was the Chernobyl nuclear plant, equipped with 4 nuclear reactors, labeled 1, 2, 3, and 4. Each reactor could generate 1,000 megawatts of electricity, fulfilling the electricity demands of half the population of the Soviet Union. In simple terms, the operation of these reactors involved heating water through a nuclear reaction. This heated water would then turn into steam, which was used to rotate turbines. The rotation of these turbines was harnessed to generate electricity. However, since a nuclear reaction is a chain reaction, meaning once it starts, it can't be stopped, 211 control rods were inserted into each reactor for control purposes. The role of these rods is to absorb the neutrons emitted during the nuclear reaction. Neutrons are crucial as they bond with uranium atoms and trigger the nuclear reaction. By having the neutrons adhere to the control rods instead of uranium atoms, the reaction automatically slows down. These rods were made of boron carbide with graphite tips. Operating 24/7, the plant faced challenges in maintaining a suitable temperature inside the reactor, which could sometimes reach 1600 degrees. Therefore, keeping the reactors cool was of utmost importance. This was achieved by continuously circulating cold water through the pumps. However, the Chernobyl nuclear plant had a significant design flaw that went unnoticed. Nuclear reactors require continuous water circulation, even when the reactor is off, because the reaction continues to generate heat for some time. The water pumps responsible for circulation ran on electricity, which was provided by the turbine of the reactor. In case of a power failure, diesel generators were installed in the facility. The challenge was that converting the electric supply from turbines to generators took 60 seconds. During this time, the pumps would stop circulating water for a whole minute. To address this, engineers installed a safety system. When the reactors were turned off, electricity production wouldn't stop immediately, but would gradually slow down power generation and eventually come to a halt. This meant that during the electricity shift, the pumps would continue to operate on the electricity produced by turbines for the 60 seconds taken by the generators, ensuring that the pumps did not stop for even a single second. After the installation of this system in all 4 reactors, it was time to test it. The first 3 reactors successfully passed the safety test, but Reactor 4 failed twice. On April 25, 1986, the team was preparing to perform the safety test again on Reactor 4 under the supervision of Deputy Chief Engineer Anatoly Dyatlov. According to the rulebook, the test should be performed between 1,000 to 700 megawatts. The Deputy Chief ordered to lower the control rods in the reactor to slow down the reaction. Everything was normal until this point, but the power dropped directly from 1,000 megawatts to 30 megawatts because the rods were lowered more than usual. To increase the power, some of the rods were taken out, and the power reached 200 megawatts from 30. To increase the power further, some more rods were pulled out. At this time, only 8 control rods out of 211 were present inside the reactor, which was a straight violation of the rules. According to the rulebook, the reactor must have at least 15 control rods in it. Due to this violation, the power rose rapidly and crossed 1,000 megawatts. Due to the intense heat, the water in the pipes, which was also serving as a coolant for the reactor core, started to evaporate quickly. The reactor experienced a criticality excursion, and the containment could not hold when the heat output of the reactor turned all of the water to steam. One report stated that as the core disintegrated, the power output was estimated to be 100 times more, or above 300,000 megawatts. To control the situation, the engineers pressed the emergency shutoff button, causing all 211 rods to lower into the reactor. The intention was to stop the reaction. However, as soon as the control rods entered the reactor, it exploded. This blast was measured to be equivalent to a 225-ton TNT explosion on the seismogram. Now, a question arises as to why the control rods, designed to slow down the reaction, appeared to have accelerated it. The explosion occurred due to the graphite tip of the control rods, as explained earlier. The rods were made of boron carbide with a tip of graphite. While boron carbide stops the nuclear reaction, graphite can excite it. The already out-of-control reaction became more excited by the graphite tip, exceeding the bearing capacity of the reactor valves and resulting in an explosion. 2 engineers died on the spot, and 2 suffered third-degree burns. The reactor 4 of the plant caught fire due to the explosion. Shortly after the accident, firefighters arrived, initiating an emergency operation to put out the fires and stabilize the surviving reactor. In response to the initial accident, a 10-kilometer radius exclusion zone was created 36 hours after the incident, evacuating approximately 49,000 people, primarily from Pripyat. The exclusion zone was later increased to a radius of 30 kilometers, evacuating an additional 68,000 people. It took 10 days to control the fire, but the core continued emitting radiation for days. A total of 237 workers were hospitalized, with 134 showing symptoms of acute radiation syndrome. Among those hospitalized, 28 died within the following 3 months. Initially, the Soviet Union tried to suppress the news to avoid harming its global image, but they were unsuccessful. After 36 hours of the explosion, the Swedish radiation monitoring station noticed increasing radiation in the air coming from Ukraine, prompting the Soviets to disclose the situation to the world. After extinguishing the fire, another threat was detected: 2 floors of bubbler pools beneath the reactor, serving as a large water reservoir for the emergency cooling pumps. Following the disaster, the pools and the basement were flooded due to ruptured cooling water pipes and accumulated firefighting water. The smoldering graphite, fuel, and other material above, at more than 1200 degrees, started to burn through the reactor floor and mixed with molten concrete from the reactor lining, creating corium, a radioactive semi-liquid material comparable to lava. There was concern that if this mixture melted through the floor into the pool of water, the resulting steam production would further contaminate the area or even cause a steam explosion, ejecting more radioactive material from the reactor. To prevent this, it became necessary to drain the pool, and to do that, someone had to open the drainage valves manually, which were located in a flooded corridor and was very risky. No one was willing to do it. At that time, 3 heroes emerged to risk their lives: mechanical engineer Alexei Ananenko, senior engineer Valery Bespalov, and shift supervisor Boris Baranov. All 3 entered the knee-deep radioactive water and successfully opened the valves. Some people referred to this mission as a suicide mission, but luckily, all 3 of them came out successfully. Due to the explosion, the air was contaminated with radioactive substances like iodine-131, which later caused thyroid cancer, mainly among children. In a few years, 4,000 people died, and the forests turned red because rainwater after the explosion was contaminated with radioactive material. With the extinguishing of the open-air reactor fire, the next step was to prevent the spread of contamination. The solution chosen was to enclose the wrecked reactor with the construction of a huge composite steel and concrete shelter, known as the sarcophagus. What's your opinion on this? Let me know in the comment section. Thanks for watching.